So, welcome to the basics. So, we're talking about standing out from the crowd and how we help products stand out on Amazon against competitors and other listings.
I just don't really to start. I mean, there's just so many things I think that we do that then make us, one, match competitors. I think that's really important. So when a lot of the brands that we work with are a lot smaller brands, and so we have to do competitive analysis to make sure that they're mimicking what competitors are doing, e.g. with something called A+, which is an expanded description with imagery. You can link other products to it. Extra text in there, different to what you would just have with a text description. Obviously, making sure there is 7 images on there, making sure there's videos on there. I think that is something that when we normally onboard a client, that's a key thing that we're looking at to then match and make sure is optimized, to then make sure that when people are clicking through, they're purchasing, they're not getting dragged away to another listing.
That's the whole discussion in a nutshell, isn't it? Because the way that you've got to start with making that product stand out is you've got to have qualitative product than anything before you start looking at the description, before you start looking at the images, before you start looking at anything to do with content, anything visual. That product has to be qualitative, or else it will just fall down like a flan in a cupboard.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how big you are as a client to us in terms of whether you have tens of thousands of listings or just a few, that process still remains the same. Yeah. And we've done that with very, very small clients, small businesses and really big businesses. That kind of process remains the same. I think if you've got a product so Amazon will love it if you have got a good quality product at a fair price, which customers like, which will then sell well, you're very likely to do well on Amazon. And then there's lots of other things you can do to help with that. But the way we would kind of measure it is if we were looking at a brand new client that came to us and asked us that, we would look at sort of the reviews and look at the feedback from customers on what they've purchased and see if there's any kind of like trends or problems with that product. So if they're selling furniture, does it often come with missing bolts and parts and, customers aren't happy with it? Is there something we need to go back to the sort of the quality assurance point? So we would look at it, from that point of view. If it's a grocery item, how does it appear? Does it come, okay? Is it in date? Has there been issues with shipment? Has it been stored incorrectly? Do we need to change the packaging? We'll always kind of feed back based off the reviews and what customers have kind of looked at.
And pricing's a big factor as well, because if you've got a qualitative product, but its price is way high over other competitive products, we found in our experience, haven't we, that it doesn't really matter then, because you're not going to get kind of the skin in the game. You're not going to get that momentum, because people will just go, well, this is a new product, I don't understand this price point effectively. So it's important to have a relative price. The product has to be of a matching quality, and that tends to fall apart rather quickly if reviews come back in. You can't trick customers. At the end of the day, people seem to think they'll go to Alibaba or whatever, find whatever they can get that's super cheap, and then that product quality is not as good. And then, as you say, those elements of it come with missing parts or something that's substandard, and that is already time, money invested that's just wasted, because you can't. The really core thing is you cannot trick customers at the end of the day. People are becoming more and more savvy, aren't they, with their shopping experiences, not just on Amazon, but in e-commerce in general. That's a really, really important thing to understand. That as a core basic before you look at anything else, is making sure that product quality is %.
It could be any of those. We have customers who come to us that have never sold on Amazon. Their listings aren't on there. It's a brand new product launch. They could also be in the case where they've been selling on Amazon themselves. It hasn't gone as well as they hoped it would, and they want some help. Or it could be that their listings are on, but they haven't been selling them. Someone else has, and they want to regain control. So it can be a mix of 3, I suppose. And then the aim is always the same, which is to improve the listing quality to therefore hopefully improve ranking and improve sales, and then overall performance on the account. So I suppose in terms of how we would, the simple things we would go to kind of improve a product and make it stand out is to look at the like you said, the listing optimization, the imagery. Does it have video? What are the reviews like? How many reviews does it have? What are the basic sort of things we can do to get some quick wins with that listing?
Also, the fulfillment method is a really key thing.
Yeah.
So if they're selling through fulfilled by themselves, so FBM, and competitors are doing FBA, it's an immediate switch as long as it's profitable to then have that being fulfilled by Amazon, to have that Prime badge. I think, is it 11 million customers in the UK have
Nearly 4. It's probably 14 now. 14 million.
Yeah.
It was 13
of Prime members.
Yes,
Yeah, in the
I think it's 200 million worldwide.
and
Yeah.
it just opens up a whole. It's a conversion helper. It's going to help with your sales ranking. It's then going to improve sales velocity. It's just a whole snowball effect with your account being an FBA and having that Prime badge. I mean, there's other ways you can get the Prime badge, but the easiest way is through fulfillment by Amazon. And I think personally, as a Prime shopper, that is something that I will filter by or toggle off. I want it next day or at least 2-day delivery when it's busy peak seasons or Amazon can't deliver it. But I think that's another really quick win, that as long as it's profitable for that product, have it in FBA immediately as soon as we can.
That's a key thing, isn't it? In terms of, we always say to most customers, FBA, fulfillment by Amazon, is the way to work, because most businesses now operate in that space. So unless they're in a category that is something like, has a low melting point, like chocolate in summer is never a good idea.
Or oversized items where the fees get ridiculous.
Beds and things, But apart from that, most of the time, getting items into Amazon's fulfillment warehouses means that then customers have the option of 7-day-a-week delivery options.
But it also then takes away that customer feedback for delivery that then becomes a problem. If you are delivering the item and you start having customer complaints about delivery, it taking too long, or that they're not being trackable services, that kind of removes that aspect of your account health then, doesn't it? That it's off you. It's not going to impact your own account. The delivery is on Amazon. And that's also another way to, as a quick win, to help your account health. If we see a valid tracking rate, which is meaning you're not putting the tracking in for each order, for each fulfilled by merchant order, as soon as it's an FBA, that takes that off you, and that's not going to affect your overall account health. Or with damages in delivery, if it turns up broken to customers, well, that's on Amazon again. You can get that removed. So I think there's other benefits to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that they're very strict, aren't they, in terms of customer experience, which is another core thing that is really important with it, as well as product quality. The experience the customer gets from buying your product is crucially important. And we know that fulfilling by Amazon is key because of that very reason. And as you mentioned, with valid tracking rates, when you sell an item directly to the customer from your own warehouse, Amazon makes sure that you are implementing tracking details and that every step of that process for the customer is there. And that can be quite tricky for customers, can't it? In terms of, tricky for clients, because they have to make sure they hit certain targets in how they get their items dispatched and sent to customers. Because if they don't, then they get penalised for it. So Fulfillment by Amazon gets rid of that element, makes it easier technically for a business to operate.
Yeah, I think another area as well with this that we've seen issues with previously with clients is the buy box, and whether they have a buy box or if there's even a buy box option on the listing. And sometimes there isn't, if they've been fulfilling themselves and they want to try and get more sales velocity through, which we know is key to Amazon's algorithm in terms of how it ranks products. But yeah, not having a buy box, we know that we've spoken to Amazon about this. They said if you put your listing into FBA, there's a higher chance you will be given a buy box option. And in terms of standing out from competitors, if you have the buy box, most people when they shop, I've heard it loads recently, when you go around shopping just in normal stores, people just say, oh, it's not here, let's just get it on Amazon, it'll come tomorrow. So then you're in a race and you're competing against all these other people who are trying to appear in that same space and have that buy box, because most people will go on, they'll find the product they want, they'll then just click buy, they won't even have a clue where it's coming from. And that's why if you have the buy box, you are going to get that sale. So I think one of the key things we monitor and track as well is how much of that buy box win percentage you've got. It's a conversation we have with most clients. In most meetings, we have them on a monthly basis, is about that and how effective it's been, what we can do to try and own it longer and better, and also things that they do at times or things that can happen which can also mean that you'll lose the buy box. So yeah, that's another key one, to being able to stand out and and be the first one that's going to get that sale.
It's also key that your price is competitive to external retailers though as well, because as we know with Amazon, they competitively price match to eBay or other retailers. And if your price is more expensive on Amazon, you might think, yeah, okay, that's still going to get me the sale. But you then risk Amazon searching elsewhere on other retailers for that competitive external price. You're then not eligible for the buy box at all. So you can't just... If you've got a product, you also then have to be, especially if it's a branded product that's then in other retailers, this might not be eligible for all brands selling on Amazon, but for bigger brands, or if you're selling into supermarkets or selling on other platforms, it's also key that you're then competitive with your own prices or people you're then sourcing to, because you then run the risk of damaging your own Amazon sales if you're not matching competitively.
It's probably a good idea to kind of explain a bit further about what the buy box is as well, in terms of why it's important and how it's different to eBay or other e-commerce businesses. So in terms of, it's not actually officially called the buy box, is it? It's
it's a featured offer.
Featured offer is what its official name is, what they call it. But effectively, we know that unlike eBay, they'll have multiple listings of an item. They have compiled a lot of them together now if they're using barcodes, but Amazon only has one product listing for however many sellers there are. So that could be, you could be selling something really popular like a pair of Sony headphones, and there could be 50 people trying to sell that item, whether it's Sony themselves or through other retailers. So Amazon puts everyone into effectively a competition, don't they, for them to be able to acquire this coveted piece of real estate on a product listing page. Their name will go underneath the add to cart, buy it now option. And then when that person clicks that purchase, that seller out of those 1 out of 50 people gets that sale. And that's crucially important, as you were saying, with different retailers getting into that space. And most of the businesses we work with only compete with themselves, and you have because they're their own brands, they don't have many, but we do have quite a few options where there are other retailers selling for them or brands that we work with that have retailers selling for them. But it's a really important thing that I think new sellers on Amazon need to understand quite heavily, what the buy box is, how it works, what the fundamentals of getting it are, the way that it tends to work in a algorithmic sense is that it tends to be down to fulfillment options. So we know that having fulfillment by Amazon FBA and having the Prime badge is key, but then price is an option. But something a lot of people don't realize, it also falls down quite heavily to how well the seller profile is, what their kind of review score is, how well they treat customers. And a lot of people don't realize that. They just think, well, if I'm the cheapest, I'll get it automatically. And we're talking in December 2023, this may, over the next year or two, change because of laws, especially in the UK. There are the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority, are doing some work, and there's some changes afoot that are coming with the buy box. So this may change if people listen to this at a later date. But for now, that's how the fundamentals of this word buy box work effectively, aren't they? So just always mentioning that, I think, is a good foundation, because I think a lot of people ask that when they come to us, if they're they're new sellers, and they go, how does this work? I keep hearing about buy box, or why has someone else got able to sell my item, or anything like that. And that's basically the core reason why, isn't it? Yeah.
But as you mentioned before, it's key that you have a buy box, even if you're not personally selling it, especially if you're selling to other retailers, because you can buy directly from search results. And if you don't have the buy box, that's not available. You can buy directly from A+ now with the Premium A+, which is an expanded version of the A+. and you can have a comparison table with multiple of your products or comparing different products from your range. You can add to basket from there. So, and if you don't have the buy box, you're not eligible for that. So,
or you can't advertise either.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is obviously just like one sort of piece of a giant puzzle in terms of how you can then compete against others, and as I say, trying to stand out and be higher up the rankings in terms of searchability against your competitors. It's just one very, very small element, and yet there's many different parts to it. And like you were saying before, with account health and stuff, if you don't run your Amazon account properly, we know Amazon will remove the buy box from random products in your account, and then you've got to improve that account health to be able to get the buy box back. And if you try and speak to Amazon about it, they will say they can never guarantee what is a buy box, when you will get a buy box, and all that. So yeah, it's one small piece, but there's a lot of elements to it.
Yeah, I think so many people focus on, especially when they come to us and they say, how much for a listing? What can I do with a listing? And we tell them the reality is in order to make this to work, and in order to be able to be at the top, standing out from the crowd, you've got to do a whole range of things. It isn't just about the listing or how the image looks or how your video looks or just having the prime match. Even though those elements are crucially important, it is exactly about how you manage the customer experience, how you present your offer, what your business is like, how it fulfills its orders. There's so many elements, isn't there, to it?
I think one thing we've missed as well is just keeping things in stock physically. If you don't have your item in stock consistently, as soon as it goes out of stock, it's going to drop ranking. You're going to lose sales. It's then going to be harder to rank higher again. And if it's almost like a yo-yo effect of in and out, you're limiting your own performance. And I think that's, if not standing out from the crowd necessarily, but also having a consistent available option on Amazon where you can then either build brand awareness or just consistently be ranking at the top to get your product up there and eyes on it. I think that's one of the most important aspects that sometimes gets missed from clients when they come in, is things being out of stock or not managing stock well. Either in FBA, having things overstocked is also not an ideal thing, and you have to find that balance, and making sure that you're not obviously having things overstocked in FBA, you get charged more, and that can then be a negative in terms of profit, or just holding stock in Amazon, you then might not have space in your capacity in Amazon to then put other things that are selling well in there. So it is managing it, but I personally think it's better to be overstocked than completely out of stock. And there's ways that you can get around being overstocked. But yeah, I think that's something that is underrated when it comes to people think that, if it goes out of stock for a couple of days, a week, it's fine, we'll bounce back. But it can have, especially on big listings with big reviews or buy box competition, as you were saying, with one thing that gets impacted is your seller rating. And if you don't have things consistently in stock, they'll just favor someone else that does.
Exactly.
So
it does. You're right, though. It does help you stand out from the crowd. Just like a simple thing like being in stock, though, because if other sellers can't keep hold of that stock or can't get decent replenishment, and you are the only one, or we've seen it before when the main seller who maybe has had that featured offer, that buy box for a long time, then for whatever reason can't get supply, and someone else does, your sales will just go up, and it always happens. So yeah, keeping supply is absolutely massive.